Hello everyone, Ethan from the Mock Maker Studios here. Today I will be taking you for an in-depth look at my largest mock ever, the Separatist Research Facility on Naboo. I finished this mock back in November of 2021, so almost 2 years ago. I uploaded a cinematic sort of video back then for it, but then life started happening and I forgot to ever upload the in-depth video. Things are slowing down, hopefully. And I want to get back into building and making videos for you guys, so I thought this would be a good place to start. I will be dedicating a video to explain in a bit more detail my plans for the channel, as well as a quick tour of my LEGO space here, and my vision for it, because it's definitely not ready. It's definitely a work in progress. For now, I hope you enjoy this look at the largest mock I ever made.
And here we have it. This is the biggest mock I have made, coming in at 4 gray base plates long and 1 gray base plate and a green base plate wide. There are a total of 9 vehicles. On the Separatist side, we have 2 Corporate Alliance snail tanks, 4 staps, and a shuttle destroyed on the landing pad. For the Republic, we have the gunship, slightly modified, and the 2008 ATTE, which I modified quite a bit, as you can see. I will link the in-depth review video for the ATTE in the top right if you'd like to see it in greater detail. Fighting alongside the ATTE, we have a mixture of 41st Elite Troopers and 501st Troops, including Phase 2 Rex. No, it's not exactly realistic to have several different battalions fighting next to each other, but I wanted to include as many clone troopers as possible, since it's a quite large battlefield, and I didn't want it to look empty. On this side of the ATT, we have Clone Army Customs 5s, along with some more clone troops. Like this Phase 2 Heavy Trooper I made with a big laser cannon and as well as an additional blaster coming off of his backpack over his shoulder. I have troops running along the entire side of the mock, charging towards the outpost, trying to take cover and get underneath the enemy fire from off the balcony area. On this corner we have 2 steps who are coming to attack the troops who've just rappelled down onto the landing platform. Which brings us to this epic scene with 212th Airborne troops and 212th troops pouring out of the gunship on cables, just like we see in Episode 3 on Utapau. This scene was a lot of fun to create. The burning wreckage of the Separatist shuttle on the platform, with 212th troops trying to hold their ground. I really love how it all came together. If you notice, I also have 2 Phase 2 pilots in the cockpit of the gunship. Those helmets are Clone Army Customs as well. You can also see here some of the modifications I mentioned earlier on the gunship, like the 2 bay doors. Those do actually close properly, which is satisfying. The loading bay is stuffed full of 212th Airborne troops and regular 212th troops. Over here on the rooftop we have some 501st Jetpack troops ambushing the Corporate Alliance tanks. One is even holding a rocket launcher to try to hit one of them. You can also see some droids riding on the tanks like we see in Episode 3. That about wraps it up for the battlefield portion. It really pleases my inner 13-year-old to see all these clone troopers charging to battle with the ATTE and gunship. For a long time I wanted to make a mock large enough to incorporate these larger sets, and I've finally done it. One additional detail is this pop-out turret on the smaller building in the back. I thought it looked pretty nice, and I wanted the Outpost to have some sort of anti-air capability. As you can see, it's firing on the gunship at the moment. All around the main building, there is a nice balcony that the droids are using to good effect. There's a turret here on this corner, and there's a mixture of B1 and B2 super battle droids, and even a couple B2s with the rocket arm defending the outpost. The balcony continues all the way around, and there's even a droid commander standing near the door. I want to quickly point out the terrain here. I wanted to go for a swampy look, and I think I achieved that pretty well. You can imagine that the ground is pretty soft, and the water deeper in some places, which is why the ATT hasn't gone any further. I made sure to add appropriate coloring under the clear water tiles to indicate the change in depth. I also added a generous number of lily pads, which I think adds a lot to the look. I added some effects around the snail tanks as they move through the water, as well as around the leg of the ATTE. I also added some vines and foliage on the underside of the ATTE, and a bit on the back, to suggest they traveled through the swamp a bit before arriving here. I added some onto the outpost itself, as well, as you can see here. I spent quite some time, probably too long, on the support pillars, making them all unique and interesting from all angles. They are all different. There is one support pillar under the landing pad which I like particularly. It has some chains and hoses hanging off of it, and I think it looks pretty sweet. On the outpost itself, we have a nice doorway here, with Separatist logos on each side. It has an opening mechanism as well. On the front two sides, there are windows looking toward the battlefield. I tried to incorporate dark blue into the outpost since it's the trademark color of the Separatists. On the back side, we have another opening door and a little catwalk to the second building. On the roof, I really love the look of these vines that I had going along and up the tower. On the top of the tower, there's a spotlight shining at the gunship, and it does rotate. Taking a look inside the control tower, you can see a couple of battle droids manning an array of computers and equipment, and that's about it. I do love how the angled windows look. It feels like how a control tower in real life would look in some way. Here you can see how the roof comes off in a couple of pieces, and now we can get inside. This lattice here is actually what holds the lights. I will show you how that looks with them turned on at the end of the tour. We will take them out while we look inside. Of course, we have some weapon racks and some interesting looking crates. I'm pretty happy with them. They look industrial, but not uninteresting in their design. One of the open crates, you can see some green crystalline substance which they are inspecting over in this side of the room. After all, this is a research facility. There are some various instruments on the table and some screens on the wall. I think it captures the essence of some kind of makeshift laboratory, which is what I was going for. We have a few droids moving towards the door on their way to the fight, and you can see the other door from here a little bit better. I'm really pleased with how the interior turned out, especially the dark blue design on the tiled floor and the dark blue accenting on the window panels. One last thing to point out is the ladder, which would presumably lead up to the control tower. Now I will show you the operation of the mechanical doors. The back door is controlled by the middle knob on the outside here. Again, I have a design in dark blue on the doors, which I think looks great. I left the mechanism uncovered because I honestly thought it was more cool to see them turning as you operate the door. The mechanism operates very smoothly, without any catching or slipping, so it's very satisfying to use. The second door is designed differently, has one door rather than two. I also added a slight gear reduction just for fun. It does add a little bit more clutter to the outside wall, but it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. Again, the operation is smooth and really fun to play around with. On the door I have some dark blue stripes, and, like I said earlier, on each side of the entrance, some Separatist logos for decoration. That is all for the main building here. The last thing we have to look at is the small building in the back. On the roof is the pop-up turret I mentioned earlier, and some more vine details. The shaping around the bottom is really nice. It's just really hard to capture on camera due to the size of the mock. The roof comes off easily, like so, to reveal the interior. There isn't much to point out, just a droid charging station. They tilt upwards so you can get a better view. The door does not actually function, there was really not enough space to make it open and close, but I think it looks just fine. Each charging station holds 6 droids, and I think they look pretty good. But don't ask me why they're all in here and not outside fighting. I think if they survive, they'll be in trouble with their commander. Under the charging stations, there are some floor grates, and on the wall some computers. Now all there is left is to show you how this mock looks with all the lights turned on. As you can see, the landing platform is fully lit, and I think it looks phenomenal. There's about 18 different individual lights illuminating the landing pad, including 4 blue lights on each corner. On the control tower, the spotlight which I mentioned earlier does illuminate. Inside the control tower is lit up as well with red light. I thought red light was more appropriate since the facility is under attack. There is red light in the main building as well, and you can see it pouring out from the windows, which I think looks awesome. I will just quickly remove the gunship so you can get a better look at the lights on the landing platform. Overall, I think adding lights to your build is always a good idea when it makes sense. It really adds to the whole feel of it. When they're all on, it's easy to imagine that the battle is taking place during the evening or dusk. If I did it all again, I might consider adding floodlights to the gunship like we see in the Clone Wars on Umbara. I think that would have looked pretty sweet. Well, that wraps up the in-depth look at my largest mock ever. There are 63 Phase 2 clones, like I said earlier, 9 vehicles, and tons of droids. I didn't actually count all of them.
So, I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. Like I said before, it took me entirely too long to finish the mock, about a year, I think it was, and there were definitely times when I felt like just throwing in the towel, scrapping the entire project, but I didn't, and I'm really glad I didn't because it turned out better than I ever thought it would. I am interested to hear your thoughts on the mocks, so leave those down in the comments below. I appreciate your feedback, and I will link to the cinematic at the end of the video. Thank you all very much for watching, have a lovely day, and I'll see you on the next one.